Really grateful to be here, and especially to be a part of this Working Class Voices series, since that's what I've made my career on. And those 100 stories, by the way, that I've had accepted, that comes with 1,800 rejections, which I think my mom said, you shouldn't tell people that. My mom's here. But I think that's important to recognize, like, how hard publishing is, and what has served me well in publishing is like that stubborn working class ethic to just keep sending stuff out no matter what. And writers in the room, I hope you keep that in mind too. Approach it like a job. Just keep sending the work out. So I'm going to read a few things. A couple of things, or one thing from my first book, One-Hundred-Knuckled Fist, a couple of things from No Good for Digging, and then I'm going to read you some new stuff that I've never read before, and we'll see how that goes. But this first piece from One-Hundred-Knuckled Fist is called Can Picking, and I can only kind of read it here in Michigan, where everybody understands the 10-cent can deposit. And I worked with some guys in construction who would make some extra bucks collecting cans from the football games at MSU. And there's like a lot of money to be made if you can sneak into the stands. So this story's about that. There's also like a sly ICP reference, that Insane Clown Posse, right? That like only Michiganders get that. But all right, can picking. We heave creaking hefty bags over our backs. Bags that look the size of baby elephants or oily engine blocks. But we aren't that tough. Bags of dried syrup and spit. And aluminum. Hidden shimmers of red, white, and blue, and lime green. 10 cents a can in Michigan. We got your Cokes and Pepsis and Fagos, your smuggled Paps, and you won't get them back. You kicked them down the bleachers when State took the lead in the second quarter. You jumped in the air and shrieked. We smoked Winston's on the tailgate of Murray's F-150 and didn't give a damn about your cheering, except for the hollow pings and pangs that followed. We bit our butts to the sound of sprinkling dimes, eyed the exits, and planned how to best sneak in. Alibi of orphaned umbrella or on the bleachers, lost purse, stranded child. Now we play the song of rescued treasure. Crinkle, groan, and crunch when we stuff our bags. Keep it a hum or get caught. 100 shuffling cans full of air when we hike down the bleacher stairs, dump them and stack them in the back of Murray's rusted bed. Baby Trudy weighs 200 pounds and isn't a baby anymore at 10 and in a training bra. She jumps off the roof of the cab, belly flops onto the hefty bag so we can cram more. Her daddy, Two-Tooth Linus, is scared she'll smack the rails, ruin her pretty face. Murray's boy, Wilfred, tells him not to worry. Baby Trudy will make a fine bus driver. Hell, if she keeps growing like that, she could be the bus. We rest syrup-stained palms on Linus's bunched-up shoulders. Not worth another back of the cruiser joyride. Wilfred is just a baby, even though he's 17. Let him be a fool and let baby Trudy do her work. She pretends she's having fun, dreams herself away, diving into a rich man's swimming pool, or maybe a fountain lined with coins, like she did last week, skimming enough coins to earn us a pizza and a case of Coke. We turn those coins to food, and we'll turn these cans to coins. The money keeps on coming until the cleaning crew shows up. We know where they start, over on the west side bleachers, and we got there first. Half their job done for them. All those cans gone. Just soggy paper cups and half-eaten hot dogs squishing under their sneakers. Poor students working the cleanup shift like suckers for $7.40 an hour. That's 74 cans. Nothing. And then the government snags a dozen of their cans. Murray's boy can sneak that into a hefty in 5 minutes, and no IRS man will ever dig his starched cuffs into our sticky bags to count. We know those cleaners are jealous, so we work faster, smarter, covert. When they show up across the field of groomed grass, we slink beneath the bleachers, blend black like our hefty bags into the shadows. Wilfred is fed up with hiding. He pangs up while we tiptoe down. His face gleams in the halide lights, painted like a clown, all white with black eyes, a stretched out black mouth. He sprints from one can to the next.
Wilfred wants us to call him Spike, hates what he calls his slave name, but he's as white as two-toothed Linus's snaggletooth incisors. His face ain't painted like the can droppers' faces, like those bleacher people's cheeks smeared green and white or blue and yellow. Wilfred doesn't paint his face for the team, but for some rap group. Not just music, but a revolution, he says. But revolution never comes. We know that from when our granddaddies chucked lug nuts at cops in Flint, and the GM factories still closed on us. From the building bust when we pawned our power tools, nothing changes for good, and the only music that matters is the crunching of an almost missed can under our boots. It sings to us, and then plink tinkles into the hefty. Wilfred is taunting fate, a backtracking race to the top bleachers where he spies a tall boy sparkling. The sucker cleaners spot him, beep their walkie-talkie, security men on their way. He don't care, hollers to them that they can't keep him down. They huddle around the talkie, point and chatter. Bright under the spotlights, Wilfred drops his pants, swings his hefty in the air, and nothing them suckers can do but cower and report. We know it's coming. We keep our heads down, bending and plucking. Our hefty bags bulge, but we keep jamming. No time for no more baby Trudy drop-offs now. Still so many glints around us. Our fingers not fast enough. A damn shame Wilfred's so dumb. Drop-out spray can huffer, lanky brain-dead mother effer. A 30-bag night fades into a 15-bagger. But we try, rush for what's left. Linus splits his finger on a mellow yellow, bleeding so much he's dropping cans. We keep going, wait for the bellows of barreled chests, the failed linebackers who now wear navy blue and scurry across the field. They're reliving the last days of glory, that quarterback sack when they made a shin bone snap. They blitz our way, fingering mace and zappers. Worthless Wilfred already hightailed it back to his daddy's truck. We count down, watch their glowing legs slicing through the bleacher struts, past the 40, the 30, 25, 5 yards a can, we figure, maybe 10 for Linus and his dripping fingers, spouting more now that the blood's pumping. Past the end zone, and that means they'll hunt the bleacher shadows, means quitting time for the seam-splitting hefties. We make for the truck. Fast but smooth so we don't jostle our paychecks too much. One hole and we got an aluminum leak. Linus can't keep up, so we sling his bag over our shoulders to the gates, out the fence, and Murray's got the engine hot in the parking lot. We peel out and those security boys will be left with full mace cans and adrenaline. If only they looked at their feet, saw what we see. We wonder if the cleaners will save those cans or toss them, not worth the time to sort it out. That time of theirs that's hardly worth nothing. We wonder if everyone forgot the promise Michigan made to us, our trash always worth a dime. In Murray's bed, we grip the rails with one hand, hug our hefty bags with the other so they won't fall out. Inside the cab, Murray swats Wilfred backside the head, yelling something. Wilfred takes off his shirt and gets to wiping away that paint. Linus finds baby Trudy face up, arms and legs spread securely over our bags. She's watching the streetlights whip past like falling stars. He'd stroke her dirty blonde hair, but one hand's bleeding and the other holds the bag tight. Thanks. Yeah, that's a fun one to get to read in Michigan. My father-in-law, who's not here, so I can share this. There's most of this collection is like construction workers, house painters, drywall finishers, roofers. A lot of the jobs that I did in Michigan when I was working construction. But there are also like some organized like thieves that raid construction sites, which also happen to us a lot. And And this story, and my father-in-law said, those aren't working people. Those are thieves. But I would like to argue, that is, a part of, I think we have to recognize a part of working world, what happens when the jobs are gone and when lost. So, or the extra gigs that we have to do to make money, like collecting cans. So anyway, I'm arguing, those are working jobs, working class voices too. I'll read one, though, that is more traditionally work-based, I guess. This is from No Good for Digging, my second collection. And a lot of this is pretty weird, experimental stories, a lot of flash fiction in here. And I'm going to start by reading a story, the first story in the collection, which is called A Nesting. And it's a piece of microfiction, so it's exactly 100 words long, which is fun to work with a constraint like that. See what you can do if you only give yourself 100 words. This is A Nesting. A nest of birds complained behind the sheetrock. We could hear their beaks clacking studs, their baby wings fluttering in tangles of pink fiberglass insulation. As we worked on installing cabinets and tacking carpet and touching up paint, they shrieked. This new home would be forever haunted by hollow bones and black feathers. We blamed the drywallers, and they blamed the framers, and they blamed the landscapers, but we all carried hammers. They hung at our hips, nestled in our truck beds, rested like the dead in toolbox caskets. Any one of us could have punched a hole and turned finished walls to fluttering. Just 100 words. All right. I'm going to read another short one here. This was an ekphrastic piece written art inspired by visual art. Often, this is more a poet's game than a fiction writer. But I had my students write some ekphrastic short fiction, and I had to do it too. And this was to an exhibit by one of my faculty colleagues at Winthrop, Thomas Stanley. I highly recommend looking him up. He is a fantastic artist. And he had this great series of these black and white prints that are just solid kind of shadows of factory houses and factory towns. And he grew up in a factory town. So that really spoke to me. And I try to capture this really simplistic black and white idea of a working class family. So this is called Father at Shift End. The mill is making, the transmission tower buzzing out, the factory hatching product. We forget exactly what's rolling off the line, but somewhere in there, through doors, through brick and shadow, they're making what matters. We smell it through our windows, sulfur and chlorine and burning oil and rubbed rubber and coal and ash, and then past 5, dozens of meatloaves baking and golden cornbread, and Father unbuttons his navy blue shirt, sucks it all in, lights a cigarette as he leaves those halls of production. 2 blocks to walk, and Father arrives home to us. Couldn't be more convenient, thanks to those great ghosts who stamp signatures on his paychecks and build houses for men like him and families like us. And our house is right here, nearly at Father's work's doorstep. Couldn't be more convenient unless he'd bought the cozy 2-story, the same model home as ours, directly across the street from the factory. Father prefers the 5-minute walk. It gives him time to smoke and count chimney stacks and think about what he'll make tomorrow, what we'll make for dinner tonight, what this country will make of the great things he just helped make. Thanks. Okay, and this one's, so I'm here as a fiction writer. This one's a little bit of a cheat. There are some poems that got turned into flash fiction in here, and there's this is a piece of creative nonfiction about somebody I used to work with in Michigan. So this is This is Doug Dreamed in Hourly Wages. At the end of a 12-hour day, you wringed your neck with a Hooters apron, draped it over your painter whites. Your license had been suspended years ago, so I dropped you off in the Hooters parking lot, exhausted, annoyed at you, while loving you, because who works like that? We'd already primed and painted 2 split levels in a ranch, and I was headed home to shower and collapse while you'd be battering wings and hovering over the miasmic fryer bubbles until midnight, until closing and later, after the girls had rolled their silverware and counted their tips and smoked cigarettes down to the butts, flicking them off into the night as if the butts were the customers' drooling eyes, their wing-gnashing snarls. You probably joined the girls for a cigarette and maybe rolled them a joint, and when they drove off buzzed and bolstered by beautiful you returned to scrub the griddle. Next morning, I picked you up, you and your son. I drove him to 3rd grade while you spit-combed his hair and listened to him rather than spouting fatherly advice because we were just kids, too, and you must have been so young, too young, a teenager when your son was born. I wanted to hate you, the inconvenience of you for losing your license a few years after you helped make a human, for making me, a decade later, have to cart your ass around in my Ford Ranger through the snow, the back tires always slipping in the Broomall, Michigan sludge, but you were smiling with your chin at this boy between us, and I was studying you a decade before I would become a parent. And you'd been a parent all night on your weekend custody while I'd been sleeping off the last 12-hour day, dreading another Saturday of painting houses. I drove you, my employee, my friend, my burden, my champion, for a year. It was a time when anyone who could swing a paintbrush could own a business and make a living because this was pre-recession bliss. We swam in the American dream, replicated 1,000 times throughout every Michigan suburb. You can still hear the stamp of foundations crashing into creation, floors and boards and walls and wires, the nailers and compressors pounding, the men laughing and smoking until we'd come in after the carpet layers and touch up the paint one last time. We'd lose all this. So much, too much. At least half of us would never be paid to touch a tool again, and the homeowners and their first homes and their babies and toddlers and kids would fill the U-Haul and wonder how the dream blinked into nothing. But I never had to see our work marked with foreclosure signs like grave markers. The subdivisions we built out of thin air and time and materials puffed into a ghost town. I escaped. But just before I left, I visited your apartment to apologize and pay you in cash with a bonus and tell you there was no more work after the boss quit. And your pit bull, that unruly mass of muscles, pummeled my lap and licked my face while you commanded it to stop too calmly, always calm, even when I let you go. Of course, you had a plan to keep working, and you asked me for honest advice. Did I think you had what it took to run your own painting business? And I couldn't even give you that. I preached at you about working on your brush skills, your cut work, and you nodded, but what an asshole I was. I hope you were thinking that. I hope you hated me for thinking I had a painting hand forged in gold and a brain too good for construction. I hope you imagined punching me out and letting your blissful dog hump my leg. I hope you at least imagined hating me before I left you to your other 4 jobs because you were so beautiful, Doug, a creature never sleeping, every hour a wage. All right, I'm gonna read something new, and of course I practiced it plenty of times, but I've never read it before an audience, and I think there are 4 different dialogue voices in here, and I read to my daughters who are 7 and 10, and I do the most ridiculous voices, and I'm not going to do that for you all here, but I'll have to do voices a little bit. So I'll try not to ham it up to a painful degree. But so my mom's here, and my dad's also here, which I'm so glad for, and I have him to thank for the idea for this story. It's about an aerial photographer salesperson, which happened pretty recently, right, Dad? Not just a year or 2? 3 years ago? Yeah. So you'd think they wouldn't exist anymore with drones, and maybe he did take a drone photo, but they're still going strong, those aerial photographer folks, and it's a little creepy. They take pictures of your house and then try to sell them to you. Right? So anyway, a creepy job, that sounds like a great story that I want to write. So this is called This Picture of Your House. I snap pictures from the sky out the side window of Tommy's 20-year-old Cessna 150. The plane's a rickety old bird, but she flies even cheaper than our van can drive ever since Bush decided to invade Iraq and shot gas prices up to $4 per gallon. My Nikon does most of the work. All I do is aim away from the wing struts and spin the lens until your house turns crisp and then click, click, click. I've gotten pretty good at framing your property line from those rose bushes to that row of pines. All so easy that me and Tommy can get toasted up there on a pint of gin. The part requiring real skill, the selling, comes when I touch the ground. Sage always drives the van and I sit shotgun when we're on the cell. Keeps my hands free for the frames so I can change out the picture between driveways. What's on the picture is what everybody wants. An aerial photograph of your house, of course. Your whole beautiful house and every last square foot of property, a picturesque home is what everyone wants, and your vanity has almost bought Sage and me a new old trailer home. The last sale of the day before we close on the trailer is stashed way out in the boonies on Loose Road, high number territory, 6995. Nice long paved driveway tells me we're not dealing with some hillbilly cheapskate. Big elms and maples all around, lawn mowed in straight stripes, yellow and blue irises blooming near the red brick walls. Sage calls it idyllic while she's turning down the driveway. I tell Sage to park close to the 2-car garage. Probably got a sports car inside, waxed up fine for summer driving after another brutal Michigan winter. As I hurry this house's photograph into the frame, I dog-ear one corner, but the frame mostly covers the flaw, and I hope that the Mr. or Mrs. won't notice. We idle with the windows down, AC full blast. Just when I light a fresh Winston, the homeowner presses his face to the screen door. He's wearing a bright yellow t-shirt, and sure enough, a silver Mustang is galloping across this fella's gut, Ford emblazoned on the chest. Trick with these old rich guys is in the waiting. Me and Sage loiter in the van, me smoking, her smiling big with those gorgeous teeth of hers, just waiting and waiting. Make them come to you, and they always do when you're staking out their own driveway. Finally, he struts out in a huff, round belly heaving under all that yellow cotton, and I return his grimace with my grin. Have I got a treat for you, my chompers say? It's not just Sage with the gorgeous teeth. We've both been bleaching. Got a little competition going. We measure every Thursday with these off-white paint swatches from Lowe's, and the winner gets a back massage. They're a problem, this guy says, doing a cop script, but he's no cop, I can always tell. All you got is blessings, I say, judging by the majesty of your kingdom here. We just love your place, Sage says. All those tulips, be still my heart. She loves it, we love it, who wouldn't, I say. They're irises, he says. You love your house right down to knowing each species, blessed with beauty and wisdom too, I say, oozing syrupy charm because I can tell this guy wants to scare us off. I got a sixth sense for assholes, and I never scare, never. Not even that time I did sell to a cop and he kept touching his gun the whole time. That cop ended up buying, of course. For a man who clearly takes pride in every flower on his acreage, I got a treat for you, I say. And he says, what's that? And I tell him, closer, closer. I can't show you from way over there. I'm still holding my cigarette, and I tuck it by the door so the smoke rises and wisps toward his nose. The fact that I'm smoking probably just makes him want to get rid of me quicker, and that can work for me. Once he's close, I lift the photograph of his house. It's squared up just right. The green lawn and flashy flowers popping, and just under the frame is a view of Sage's upper thighs poking out the mini denim skirt she picked out for today. Bet you recognize this place, I say. And when he just keeps staring at the photo, or maybe at Sage's thigh, I finish for him. It's your lovely home like you've never seen it before. You're admiring the best aerial photography in the county, like God snapped the shot. We just love your place, Sage reports. Begging to be framed, I say, and lucky for you, I've already done it. I push the frame into his hands. That's Amish made, handcrafted, real oak. Can't get a frame like that at Walmart. But then he says, there's a crease in that corner. Oh, that's barely anything. That'll flatten right out pressed into such a well-made frame in a day or two tops. He turns it over, inspects the back, as if he's looking under the hood. Back of a picture, what the hell does that prove? Lucky for you, the frame's on sale this week. Makes the whole package an unbeatable deal. We just love the work the Amish do, Sage says. You tried their pies? Sure, I tried their pies, he says, because we've all tried their pies. They bully them into every local shop and set up lean-tos all over the highways. Every time we drive to scope out the trailer home we're buying, they're waiting to pick us off in their ugly dresses and bonnets, and Sage always stops. Probably could have bought the trailer home a month sooner if not for all the pies, and I have to admire their sales technique. Special deal for my friend with the lovely home is only $400. The tight ass scrunches his nose like Sage just farted. I can't get anywhere near that. What kind of price would please you, sugar? Sage says. We want this lovely photo going where it belongs, above your mantle. But we can't lose money again, baby, I say to Sage, because that's the pity routine, one I don't love playing, but Sage thinks it's our best move. She can't understand why everyone's heart isn't bursting with pity like hers. We gotta eat, can't just give them away. It's not that I can't afford it. He pushes the framed photo back through my window, and the corner digs into my chest. Obviously, I can afford it. Just on principle, that's a crazy price to pay for a photo. A customized aerial portrait set in a handcrafted frame? I raise the cigarette, which is mostly all ash now, and I take a nice long puff. He scoots to the side like the smoke might bite him. Heck, just yesterday, your neighbor a few houses down said I was crazy to only be charging $400. Oh yeah, which neighbor? I sell way too many of these to remember every name. Describe the house for me. Did a dog bark at you, vinyl siding, or painted? What color was the front door? He says, and I feel like shoving the cigarette's cherry right through his house's picture, right through the chimney, and then flicking it in his face. That's when Sage says, now what's that? She's holding the photo close to her nose. She points a tangerine-painted fingernail at a bright glob in the backyard. Truth is, no one looks at the pictures too closely between snapping the shot out the Cessna's window and slipping it into the frame. That's a sunbather, babe, I say. Looks like. Don't look like they got no clothes on, Sage says. Tell me, friend, I say, propping the photo in my van's window frame. You think that might be you? He doesn't say anything because we've snagged him. Sure, even if you squint, you can't see anything worth seeing. It's the idea that matters. Since photography was invented, it's always been about the impression of being caught in a second, seemingly so real that every painter in the world had to start going abstract. Suddenly, any Joe Schmo could capture any portrait, easy as looking. Lucky me, trapped the perfect second. When he runs inside in a yellow flash of torso, I'm surprised. I grip the door handle, but Sage puts a hand on my knee. What, you gonna chase after him into his house? That's my lovely Sage, always soothing my impulsive instincts. Indeed, chase him inside and what? Face the barrel of a gun? He wouldn't own some dusty rifle or sensible Glock. He'd have dumped a bunch of dough into a shiny Colt revolver, something that made him feel like a cowboy. He'd probably wear it in a holster while he drove his Mustang around town. He'll be back, Sage says, petting my thigh. She lights me a fresh cigarette, presses it between my lips. You know, I think it probably is him. Gut looks familiar, no? But maybe they got a matching pair. Her tangerine fingernail swirls around the pale blob of somebody's body. It gets me wondering how a person ever feels comfortable enough in their backyard to get naked and show God what he made. Sage and I have rented an apartment for 3 years, a crummy one-bedroom, and the pot-dealing neighbors keep the hallways reeking of skunk. The trailer we've been scouting has red siding and a bay window, but even at the stars-aligning estates, where each street is named after a zodiac sign, the lots are slivers of an acre. Give your wang some sun on Sagittarius Drive, and the whole place will be snapping pictures. I hope it's her, I say, not him. That's mean, Sage says. I'm just saying, if it were you, I'd pay a bunch more. I'd pay anything to keep you safe. Nice try, Buster. She prods me with a tangerine nail. I'm plenty safe. The yellow-shirted belly bursts through the door, carrying not guns, but bottled waters. He passes them through my cigarette smoke. Sage cracks hers and guzzles, beams at the man with a thirst-quenched smile. My water just sits in my lap. Suppose I bite, he says. You got the negatives with you? I don't, I say. But you have his word he won't show no one else. She takes another grateful guzzle. And my word, too. 2 words for the price of one. How about that deal? The guy scratches one of his legs with his sneaker heel, balancing his pot belly like a flamingo as he mulls. He digs into his pockets, produces a folded stack of bills. Unless you'd prefer a check, he says. But I figured you type of people wouldn't appreciate a check. Extortionists, he means. Crooks making a lucky break. If making him feel like he's getting robbed opens this tight-ass's wallet, so be it. I count the money in front of him, and there's only $90, plus a sad, crinkled pair of Washingtons. You're short, I say. That's what I'm giving you, he says. No more. If I was a dishonest man, I could upcharge you for capturing such sensitive subject matter. Truth is, sometimes I get full asking price, though that's rare. The goal is turning the photo into any amount of green, but this guy has pissed me off, and I want to squeeze him for more. I know I can. I'm giving you what you get, he says. Just when I'm about to throw the money in his face, Sage pushes the frame over me and through the window. She's saying thank you, saying once again how much she loves the place, back in the van down the driveway. This guy and me stare at each other through the windshield the whole way, the frame photo tucked under his arm, the wad of cash crinkling in mine. I stretch the resentment out over days. Hate like that is an endless cigarette, a satisfying burn that just ends up killing you. But damn, sometimes satisfaction is worth the trade. I'd rather live a shorter life burning hot, I guess. Over the next few days, we sell 8 more aerial estate photos, finishing off Big Belly Yellow's neighborhood. I keep using him as bait in my pitch. Your neighbor down at number 6995 bought one. He snatched it right up. Thought it was a dandy deal. Every time I say it, Sage pinches me with her tangerine nails. Sure, I gave him my word about the photo, but that doesn't mean he can't serve me as a sales prop. I'll inhale that sucker and blow him cold onto his neighbors. Eventually, 1002 near the end of the block sets me straight. This lady buys a picture plus frame for $499.99. No questions. She's clutching it with both hands, bobbing her permed, magenta-dyed head when she says, I'm surprised Mr. Platt could afford one of these. Who's that now, I say. The gentleman with the lovely irises, Sage says. The what? I say. You know, the yellow shirt. She makes a big round gesture over her belly. Sure, Mr. Platt. He loved his photo, I say. His wife just died. The magenta-headed lady from 1002 says, I'm surprised he could pay because he's losing the house. Couldn't afford it without her. Life insurance left him hanging out to dry. Oh, I say. It's a whole thing. The entire neighborhood talks about what a shame it was, her death, the heart attack, but you don't see me gossiping on about it. The lady won't stop ogling the photo of her house to bother looking up at us. Oh, I say. That's horrible, Sage says from behind me, sounding like she's choking on one of her long nails. Just horrible. Finally, Mrs. Bobblehead breaks staring at her photo to flash us her serious face. Yes, that's what I say too, horrible. After we move into the trailer, we become instant homeowners. Maybe we don't own a few fancy acres that frame up nice in a photograph, and maybe if me and Tommy snapped a shot of our place, it would just be a clump of white boxes zigzagging through the trailer lot like broken teeth. Maybe not a house, but sure as hell a home. First thing we do is gut the place. From cabinets to the orange shag carpet to the chicken print wallpaper in the kitchen, we strip it to the studs. Our out front sits a junk mound big enough that Tommy could spot it from the Cessna. Soon enough, Sage and I make the place beautiful. Blonde cedar paneling, vintage turquoise oven, thick cream curtains hung on reclaimed conduit. We're shabby chic. We're living it up. But just after we replace all the vent covers with these beautiful black iron pieces from Harold's Antiques Trove, Sage says we're missing something. I feel it too. That sense of missing lingers over the place as if there's no frame to our photograph. That night, we cruise out to Loose Road again, way out by the 6000s. We drive by the mailboxes and porch-lit home fronts that purchased a picture to fund our new trailer. We roll up to 6995 and the house is dark. Maybe no one lives there yet. Maybe they're sleeping. We park the road and tiptoe. Sage works the shovel while I watch. We hope they'll live, but I'm unsure about those delicate, spidery roots. She tugs them out of the earth like a pro, and I fumble them into the hefty bag. I bet her nails are trashed. She just painted them lime green yesterday, and we'll have to start over before we head back out on the road to sell more pictures. The bag full of flowers grows heavier, and I set it aside to reach into my pocket. I brought the negatives of Yellow Shirt Guy's photograph, and I plant it in one of the holes where his irises used to live. He probably wanted the negatives to make copies, I realize now, so he could blow up that blink of sunbathing body. But I have no idea where he moved to. Plus, he swindled me down to bones on the price. Leaving the negative here seems like kindness enough. I kick dirt over the hole. That night, me and Sage screw with dirt on our hands, the scent of it all over our bodies. It's great sex, and it's always great with Sage. After, she struts outside in just a t-shirt, me following in just shorts, and neither of us mind if any of our neighbors are watching. She lights a cigarette for me, passes it from her lips to mine. She doesn't want me smoking in the new trailer, and that was an easy sacrifice. I never tell her, but I'd give up the whole smoking thing for her. I'd give up anything. She leans into my legs and tips her head up to the stars, and we can see a few more out there than we could see in that apartment squeezed into the middle of the city. I blow some smoke up where she's probably looking. Then she says to the sky, "Think those irises will be okay in the bag overnight?" "Sure," I say, "of course, but I don't know shit about flowers." "What about him?" "Who's that?" I say, but I know. "Yellow Belly at 6995, you think he's managing?" "Baby, that son of a bitch is fine. How could anyone hurt a grumpy old asshole like that?" "He's not that much older," Sage says. "Enough older," I say. And we go to bed in the home we own as much as anyone owns any places, mortgages and leases and liens and loans. Who owns anything? Tommy even could lose his plane in a snap if he missed a payment, if we didn't sell enough photographs, but Sage, it seems, can't let it go. Next morning, we're planting the irises, and she says, "You think he only gave us 92 because those were his last dollars? I think he was a cheapskate." Sometimes I think about how much he might have needed that money if his wife just died and we pressured him into that photo. Puts my tummy in knots, you know. What I don't know is how to plant irises, how deep the hole should be, whether this bag of dirt we bought on clearance has the right nutrients or alkaline balance or whatever. I don't even know if it's the right time of the year. I don't know anything. For now, most of them we've planted are standing tall and pretty. This army of color fencing our pretty red trailer home. He had a Mustang. He had a nice house. How bad could things be? I bet you're right, Vance. I should leave it alone. Bury it right here, bury it right here in our dirt, baby, I say, and pass her a blue iris, the prettiest one I can pull from the trash bag. She lowers it gently and brushes the earth over top. I study her hand, the lime nails smeared in clearance dirt. If Sage died first, and some joker showed up with a picture of her sunbathing, her whole body blaring in the sun, even if it was only the size of a petal from way up in the heavens, there's no price I wouldn't pay. Not for that kind of miracle. I have one more very short one, like 5 minutes. Are we cool with that? I always hate it when the authors ask me if we have enough time when I'm running a reading series. Sorry, Dan. I just did it. All right. This is a quick one. This is called Dad Died in Denim. Both of these stories, by the way, will be in the new collection, Such a Good Man, that's coming out. It's a lot about dads and people trying to be dads and being bad dads, and maybe this is a good dad in this story, at least a rare good dad from the collection. And my dad has very much inspired this collection by being a wonderful man. The collection is called Such a Good Man, and all the men in it are terrible, but my dad is quite a great man. So, Dad died in Denham on a second shift, collapsed over a headlight, the same headlight he'd been assembling since 1978, the same 5 Phillips head screws. They just kept rolling down the belt, and they always did, and they always will, and they're coming down the belt just now into Betty Davenport's hands as we speak, which is why she won't make the service. We understand. Everyone understands someone has to screw those 5 screws. Everyone understands the line can't stop. Dad owned one suit, back of his closet. We pulled the plastic bag, unzipped a brown number that seemed impossibly small, tailored to fit a miniature dad even Mom couldn't recall. There was a picture somewhere, our sister Jilly said, of him pinched into that suit and squatting on the hood of an orange Mustang. Mom didn't remember an orange Mustang. None of us did. Jilly dug through boxes and albums but couldn't prove it. The brown suit sprawled across the kitchen table all night, and when we found that deflated man in the morning, we knew it wouldn't fit our dead dad. No way. We returned to the closet to shuffle hangers, all holding neatly draped Wranglers and Levi's and Lees. Finding pants formal enough for death was a problem. Dad didn't go to church, and he'd worn blue to all our weddings, all our babies' pageants and baptisms and spelling bees. Any place that don't let me wear jeans don't need me, Dad had always said. But we had an open casket to face, and the mortician was calling again, asking if they could lend some burial garments from their stock or if we'd be bringing clothes over. Borrowing burial garments from the funeral home sounded like a good way to make $20 slacks cost $200, and we knew Dad would have hated that. It would have made him spit right on the carpet, which he'd done only 4 times. When the union busted, when the plant cut overtime, when Jilly's husband bruised her jaw, and when Jilly remarried Janice. But that time he'd done it because he was too happy. Janice was from the factory floor, from his floor, and he loved her more than he'd ever loved any of us. She cried the hardest when we unzipped that sad little brown suit. Back at the closet, we dug under brightly colored teal and orange sweaters from the 80s and found a pair of threadbare jeans bleached white as a ghost. In a cardboard box labeled with a Sharpie-drawn smiley face wearing a hard hat, we found denim so deeply indigo they'd pass for black. But they were speckled in white paint, streaked in the maroon of Jilly's teenage room, dabbed in the sage green of my kid room, dotted in the gray and purple and red and beige of the rotating colors Mom had demanded for our front door over the decades, splashed in the canary yellow of baby Wanda's room that she only got to live in for 3 weeks and 4 days before she stopped breathing one night in her crib. Jilly liked the idea of burying him in these pants, said it'd be like taking the family house down to the dirt with him. But we knew that just wouldn't be right. You can't go to the grave wearing your weekend work pants. Since we couldn't decide, we resorted to a game. Each of us would pick a pair of jeans at random, eyes closed, all of us good and drunk off the bottle of 10-year-old bourbon Dad had been saving for the most special occasion, and we supposed this was it. We stumbled into his closet, blindfolded now since we'd decided none of us could be trusted to keep our eyes closed. When it was my turn, I stumbled in, head throbbing because they'd tied the blindfold too tight in their drunken belligerence. It felt like my eyes might roll back into my skull and I'd show up at Dad's service too blind to read the eulogy I couldn't bring myself to write. But then my fingers found his denim, and I squeezed and I crouched to bury my nose in his smell, shop grease and WD-40 and Brute deodorant and Stetson cologne, and behind that fatherly potpourri, there was the trace of ammonia he could never quite mask. Dad was a heavy sweater. Even dumping vinegar in the washing machine couldn't cut the stench that made him so self-conscious, a smell we said nothing about, even though we all hated it. But we loved him so much, and I was glad my eyes were so squeezed behind that blindfold, or else I'd cry, and he couldn't stand crying because it would get him going. He was as much a crier as he was a sweater, a father who couldn't keep anything bottled up, who poured everything out on the living room and factory floor. I fanned my fingertips across the dozens of pairs of jeans and said a Hail Mary and an eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and I grasped that pair, this one. Right here. This would be the one we'd bury him in. Because could you imagine him wearing anything else? Thanks.